All right. Let's get to the news at hand. This was the big one. Fable Legends, the
Shocking.
divisive. I think it's fair to call that game divisive, right?
I think that's
I
totally
mean, I think
reasonable.
everyone sort of agreed.
I mean, within this room, it was even divisive.
I think
like
in
I was
order
kind of like,
for
I'm
it to
not
be-
sold on it yet.
For it to be divisive, I think somebody would have had to care.
No, come on, Mitch. Be
That's
real.
a little harsh.
There were a lot of people in the closed beta that were really enjoying the game. It's
I totally forgot there was a closed beta.
Yeah.
there's been a closed beta for quite some time. So
We were all kind of wishy-washy on it, but the community, like we did an episode a while ago, and I said, what do you guys think? Like, let us know. I got a lot of tweets that people are like, I love this game.
Well, and
Wow.
again, I've gone over many times how I just cannot, like, I think the game is a decent game. I just cannot get past the fact that it's a Fable game and has none of the things about Fable that I like in it. And it's not a criticism of the game, it's a criticism of
The direction.
Yeah. So Fable Legends, as you probably heard by now, has been canceled.
As
And
has-
Lionhead,
yeah.
the developer, is likely to be shut down. The Hanno Lemke, the general manager of Microsoft Studios Europe, says that they're, quote, in discussions about shutting
There's
down
been
the
a
studio,
proposal, which
Yeah.
is not, you don't announce that, like, hey, we're thinking about shutting down a
Which
studio.
evidently that's sort of a
legalese
thing,
thing.
like a UK
Yeah.
thing, like a legalese. Yeah.
So, guys, I want to start, as we mentioned, its absence from the event 2 weeks ago, the spring showcase, was very telling. And I don't know, I think it's a shame that they seem to gamble the entire Lionhead Studios present and future on this new direction, because they hired Unreal Engine programmers, they hired people with sort of persistent online game experience. They really reshaped the studio towards this kind of game, and now in pulling the plug on the game at this stage, it's cost them the studio as well.
It really feels like throwing the baby out with the bathwater to me.
Yeah,
like, hey,
I'm
let's
super confused.
You know, we don't want Fable Legends. We're going to cancel that game. But also, let's just cancel the studio. Let's get rid of all these people. And obviously, some of them will end up at different studios, and internal and external, whether it's at Microsoft or they get picked up by other devs in the UK. But it's just so bizarre that they put everything into this one project.
Yeah.
But it was just one project that over the course of the past 3 years has gone through.
We saw
has
it
gone-
at
have gone through.
Gamescom
It was
4 years
It was
ago?
revealed at Gamescom of 2013. Yeah, because that was the last Gamescom I was at, and
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
where it was.
Yeah, and it's gone through such radical changes and became free to play, and it was this dungeon master thing, and it was that. Honestly, all of us who played it, we walked away. It was just
Shoulder
with sort
shrug.
of indifference. Of like, it wasn't offensively bad, but like you said, the fact that it had the name Fable before it was almost unacceptable. Just because the Fable trilogy 2 and 3 especially are such maybe aside from Halo and Gears are the games that to me are so synonymous with the Xbox brand.
There was a time not long ago where Halo, Fable, Gears, Forza were the four pillars, the pillar franchises of Xbox. But yeah, you bring up a good point, Marty, that I mean, the thing, I just don't understand how after the Fable The Journey side was clearly a side, they weren't taking the whole series.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to be, that wasn't going to be Fable. But it was, the Kinect side thing, and then they did an Xbox Live Arcade game no one remembers called Fable Heroes, which was sort of a side-scrolling hack and slash thing. And then the Xbox One came along. How did Microsoft not think that a proper Fable 4, a Fable 2 or 3-esque open-world game on this new, way more powerful hardware was not the way to go? That's all we Fable fans ever wanted, but they chose to go chase this 4v1 multiplayer dragon.
Yeah.
We'd already suffered through these two spin-offs, and I think the community, we Fable fans just wanted a proper next-gen Fable game.
Well, that was the response to those games, too. It was like, Fable The Journey is weird. Can we just get a new Fable game? Okay, Fable Heroes is weird. Can we just get a new Fable game?
Yeah.
Fable Legends is weird. Can we just get a new... Like, guaranteed they thought about it, they talked about it, maybe there was a version of that game in development, and that is part of, like, a secret cancellation that we don't know about, that is also a money-sucking thing for the studio that necessitated it getting shut down. We don't know. But I have to imagine they thought about it. I have to imagine there was something in production.
Well, yeah, and Ryan and I were talking about this the other day, is that in the time since sort of Fable 2 and even Fable 3, it seems like fantasy like that has become even more popular and more mainstream with stuff like
Thanks,
Skyrim and Game of Thrones. Totally. And whereas like Fable, yes, it is fantasy, but it has such a different tone than any of those things.
It's refreshing.
Yeah.
Like Fable would be even more refreshing now than it was 6 years ago.
Like a serious fantasy game with a ton of jovial stuff in it is what makes that series great. Because it is dramatic and it has, moments of like intense violence and harrowing things in it because it's so based on good and evil and it's rooted in making those choices, but it's so funny and it's so lighthearted, that it always felt, even though Fable 3 wasn't the best game in the world, it was like, yes, this is great. Like, this is a Fable game. It's what I want.
Yep. On a personal note, like having followed this studio for so long since like Fable released on the original Xbox, and then even before that with some of their other properties, it feels like we're losing as gamers.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I mean, there's no doubt.
Those properties, sure, Microsoft will probably still own them in some capacity.
Yeah.
But it's just weird to hear Lionhead is closing and like it sucks.
The amount of devs I saw tweet out that like this was like I probably I wouldn't have this job if it weren't for stuff like Black and White and Fable and even the movies.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I loved the movies so much.
Supposed to come to the original
them.
Xbox. Never did, but
loved the
PC
movies.
version was really cool. Yeah. And I know 2020 hindsight's very easy, but I wonder because this is a game. Fable Legends is a game that was, for all intents and purposes, done. I mean, it was pretty much, from what we could tell, done. Finished games don't get canceled very often. I mean, it happens, but it's pretty rare for them to be sitting on something and decide this isn't worth the potential damage to the brand, rather than just dump it out and see what money we can possibly recoup. And so, as part of that 2020 hindsight, I wonder, could the studio have been saved if they'd canceled it a year ago? I mean, we'll never know, right? But it's just that's where my mind goes when I hear about this horrible news.
Yeah, and obviously a thing like this is way more complicated than any of us can imagine.
There's a lot going on behind the scenes.
So many moving parts. Also, Lionhead did BC as well, right?
They were working on it.
Well, I mean, that was
okay. So
another cancel game.
It's yes and no. It was a satellite studio of Lionhead called. Oh man, you're putting me on the spot. But they were.
I'm on it.
Thank you. It was more or less Lionhead.
Okay.
Yeah, it was sort of this. It was that's what it was. It was a satellite studio. Intrepid. Is that right, Mitch? Tell me if I'm right.
Okay, that sounds familiar.
BC Xbox.
You look at Lionhead, and you have to wonder what they did differently than Rare, because Rare's in kind of a similar situation where Xbox One is launched. They did these Connected Venture games, and then they did Rare Replay, and they're doing okay.
Intrepid.
It was. Yeah. Okay, good.
I think Rare's in a more unique and fortunate position in that they were able to re-release all the stuff with Rare Replay, very similar to what Lionhead did with Fable Anniversary. But I don't know, man. Like, I feel like the reputation of Rare and them having been acquired by Microsoft so long ago for so much money necessitates them keeping them around.
That
said, it's not like Rare doesn't earn that spot. That is an amazing studio that's doing amazing things, and Sea of Thieves is amazingly promising.
Yes.
That is a game that very well could become a pillar of Xbox's future in the same way that Halo is, in the same way that Gears is, in the same way that Fable was.
But I guess they didn't feel like Fable Legend was a bet that they wanted to take.
I think, or Fable. I think the Fable franchise dies with this news.
Yeah.
I think that yes, because the wording of the article that they posted about what happens to the studio and what's going on with the game is they very specifically mentioned that they are doing this because they want to focus their attention on franchises that players really care about. And I think that if you were closing Lionhead and you were canceling Fable Legends, that doesn't mean, and we're going to do Fable 4. It means we are moving on.
You and I respectfully disagree on this. I think for the reasons Marty said about fantasy being bigger than ever, because Fable's success is not that far in the past.
Sure.
Yeah. It's really not that far back.
10 years max,
It's still, I think the names, the brand still has value. It still has good memories associated with it. I don't think it's been ruined. And so the way I think, so here's what I think the best way to save Fable would be. Whether this happens is another story, but if I were Phil Spencer and I had that power, because he has that power, but the way I would save Fable is, this is going to sound a little nuts, but hear me out. So I would reboot it. as as a Fable 1, Fable 2, style open world game like we're talking about in those games vein. Call it just Fable, not Fable 4. Just start over. It's Fable, and give it to Rare.
Oh.
And the reason that I would give it to Rare, and this is the part where it might sound nuts, and you might think, Brian, you're stupid, but I just think that game, the part of what makes Fable great, that Fable, one of the mistakes Fable Legends made was that Fable charm.
Yeah.
And that Fable charm is decidedly British. It's a British humor. It's a British sort of feel and the British writing. I just think that Fable has to be done by a British studio. I don't think you could have an American studio fake it.
Yeah.
So Microsoft owns Rare. They're a British studio. You could import some of the talent that's being lost from the Lionhead closure.
Man, I hope Rare absorbs a lot of those people.
And you could spin up a smaller team. Obviously, most of Rare is. We actually don't know. We used to, I think, know that there were multiple teams at Rare, but now we don't know. Are they all on Sea of Thieves? Or we don't
Where's my
actually know.
Battletoads game?
Shut up.
But let's just presume that most of Rare, if not all of it's on Sea of Thieves. But you could spin up a smaller pre-production team, hire some of the Lionhead folks, and I would have Rare start rebooting Fable. And then in a year or two you could announce it and say Fable's coming back. It's Rare is doing it, and it's going to be, getting back to the original vision of the game. That's how I would do it.
I was so excited when you said that, and then I realized that means we would never get Banjo 3, and I immediately hated that idea.
Maybe that's
sorry,
already in
Marty.
the bag.
I'm so sorry.
Maybe Playtonic can just get the Fable brand after
Perfect.
Microsoft buys them.
Ukulele. Yeah. To be both pessimistic and optimistic, I think that won't happen because I think Sea of Thieves is that game. I think that Sea of Thieves will replace that whimsical, funny, adventure, open world sort of fantasy element. Right?
I respectfully disagree because Phil has talked on this podcast a lot about sort of having the different genres checked off in the portfolio. That's why he went and signed Tomb Raider.
Sure.
To get that action adventure game that
Fill the
first party portfolio was missing. Sea of Thieves is Destiny. It is a persistent shared world cooperative
pirate
shooter
adventure.
Fable in its
shooter.
Sorry, not shooter.
No, I wasn't.
That Destiny is.
Okay.
No,
You said shared world pirate adventure.
More of an MMO.
It's probably muskets.
More of an online role-playing game.
Yeah.
Whereas Fable
rum drinking
is kind of that more Zelda-ish hack and slash. It's open world a bit, but I don't think they're. I don't think they that.
I don't think
Thieves covers it.
I don't think it's a direct parallel. I just think I think Sea of Thieves hits like enough of the boxes in that column.
Maybe
to be like, well, maybe this is enough.
I
hope I'm wrong.
I was under the impression that Sea of Thieves was something different.
What do you think it was?
More like Fable, that you would pop in and there'd be like 4 of your buddies there that you'd go and have an adventure with. Like
that is in there.
Yeah, I don't know. I was getting much less of a Destiny vibe and more of sort of just like a multiplayer, open world adventure game.
He's just comparing it to Destiny on an infrastructure level of how the multiplayer works, not so much any of them like in-game mechanics.
Yeah.
There's so much about that game we
don't
don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we probably won't know until E3.
You show up to a hub and there's just like a bunch of people doing pirate stuff.
I mean, I'll tell you right now, like when we start to book our behind closed doors appointments for E3, like the things we're going to see, we always, of course, all try to book our favorite things first. Sea of Thieves will be the first thing I book. Like that's going to be the first. I
$1,000,000%.
Yeah, want to know, but. It's a shame that Fable is gone. It's again, the hindsight's tough because people did raise concerns about this direction 2-3 years ago. I wrote a preview that people at Microsoft were not happy with when I first played the game at E3 a couple of years ago, laying out exactly why I thought. It seemed like a decent game, but just had no business being a Fable game. So,
yeah, it's funny. This 4v1 asymmetrical multiplayer thing just seemed to become a fad and then quickly almost go away. With there was that BioWare game that got announced and got
Shadow
canceled.
Realms.
Yeah, I mean,
You're right.
Evolve's still here, but it's sort
Nobody's
of
talking
it
about
landed
it.
last year, and I feel like the community drifted away from it. Pretty
Great
quickly.
game, but
Yeah.
that seemingly hasn't had good legs.
Totally. So yeah, it seemed like it was one of those buzzwords that came and went really quickly.
Yeah, boy, I forgot about Shadow. You're right. So this is now out of the what I guess would be called 3 major 4v1 games. 2 of them got canceled before release.
Yeah, which is crazy. And yeah, part of me wonders like now with it seems like the buzz term this year is hero shooter, and it's like, well, what's going to happen with all these that are coming out?
You thinking Overwatch and stuff like that for the
Yeah,
hero
stuff like-
shooter?
like,
Overwatch,
Overwatch,
Lawbreakers,
Battleborn,
Battle Cry, Paragon.
Bring it on.
I'd love to take
Ding
the
dong.
temperature.
Paragon claims it's a MOBA.
Bundle board.
yes.
Paragon is absolutely a MOBA.
I'd love to take the temperature from the community on what's the prison shooter? Lawbreakers, and Paragon.
It's
Because
just
for
been
me,
called prison shooter.
yeah,
Prison Bang Bang.
Because for me, I'm pretty tepid on both of those titles right now. I don't feel like there's enough out there to like get me really riled up, and I'm wondering how the community feels about it. Like, I can't wait for Lawbreakers.
There's a lot of people who are probably in the alpha that aren't allowed to tell you how they
Very
feel.
true.
But they probably
Yeah.
will.
Tweet at Destin Legare and
all your
don't
secret
break
thoughts.
NDA.
One final side note on this. This kind of made me scratch my head a little bit, and I don't know. It made me feel weird when I read this. Fable Legends, if you are in the closed beta, it will remain playable until April 13th.
Why?
It's just it's a canceled game.
Just give it to them. Just put it out there now. Like, don't promote it. Like, the
Well,
game's done. I guess they have to
you can't-
support
yeah,
servers.
you can't exactly. That's not that easy, but it just seems odd that you've got this dead game walking. And
Why
it's
not
like,
just
yeah,
shut
why
it
not
off,
and
like-
play- well, that's my.
Maybe
thing.
they've already paid for the servers
Well, okay,
for that long.
they're investigating the studio right now. They
Well.
haven't shut it yet, so maybe
right,
until
but
that happens,
they have canceled the game.
All right, yeah.
Game's canceled. So
Shut it down.
If you're in the
I
beta,
sort of-
check it out.
Like this, I don't know. It seems weirdly romantic to me.
A little bit.
Like the idea, like maybe there's people who've made friends in this game or something.
We got
It's
1
like, well,
month left together,
yeah,
baby.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
The first and last Fable Legends wedding.
I want to get into this beta just so I can see what it's like to play a game like its last hour.
Yeah.
Like, is it like
to be
Majora's
there as it
Mask where
ends.
just the moon's coming?
They did that with the Matrix Online.
Oh,
like
I remember
people
that, yeah.
all got together and they actually had the world like change and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Well, also
where it-
Star Wars Galaxies,
yeah.
where everyone was just hacking it at the end. So there's like upside down AT-ATs walking over Jabba's palace as the Death Star is floating around in there. It's so good.
Yeah.
The end of Star Wars Galaxies was nuts.
all right, so best wishes to all Lionhead
Definitely.
employees. Should you, in fact, find yourselves out of work, which it seems to be the direction that they're heading here. I mean, I suppose they just decided, rather than with the whole studio oriented in this direction that they no longer want to go, they thought, well, we'd have to take years and a lot of money to reorient the studio in another direction. I don't know. That's the only reason I can come up with for closing the studio.
What's going to happen to Milo and Kate?
God.
Or Milo?
Milo and Kate gone.
My heart
Game
hurts.
never
Are
came
they
out.
still on
BC never came
But
out.
are Milo and Kate like still on a single computer at Lionhead?
Talking to each other
where are you all
forever?
going?
Oh,
Why are
man.
the lights off?
Ask Peter Molyneux. He might have
Yeah.
the last one. Black and White gone. The movies gone.
Movies as a whole, as an artistic medium,
They're
Just
done.
gone.
Yeah.
Film is over, guys.
the
They've
last
been
movie will be
wiped out.
shown on April 13th.
But bearing in mind, again, Microsoft does own every single one of those IPs. It'll be up to them whether they decide to do anything with it.
I think we'll see Fable
Time will tell.
this generation.
I
I hope so.
I hope so.